Let's see what Theorywise is saying in his newest video.
RuneScape is strangely flexible. I've always called it a curated sandbox, a blend of sandbox and theme park MMO, a theme box, if you will, that synthesizes some of the best features of both. Exciting vertical progression, especially in the early and mid-game, and character or horizontal progression in the long term. It has always felt like an accidental blend of two great things, and that makes sense. That's how most wonderful things come to be. Peanut butter and chocolate? Dark Souls. Two ingredients, a Metroidvania and a character action RPG, deftly combined to create the most influential set of video games of the 2010s. If RuneScape was purely horizontal akin to a Guild Wars 2, I don't think I would enjoy it nearly as much. The fact that we're still feeling ourselves get stronger after thousands of hours of playtime is a testament to the broad depth of the game's progression, and how that progression can be manipulated. Something I and many others have repeated frequently is that modern MMOs have embraced seasonality. Their content cadence is designed to be played and dropped in increments of about a quarter to half a year at any given time. Each one of these seasons features a soft reset of character progression, not like in an ARPG wherein you start fresh-faced at level 1 and speed through the campaign, but soft in that you technically keep your earned items, but with the release of the new content, those items.
So there's a new meta on YouTube. Pancake said Theorywise changes his YouTube titles every hour. There's a new feature on YouTube. It allows you to put multiple titles in, and then it will give you the data on which one people are clicking on the most. So you can actually click on a video and then reopen YouTube, and it will show you a completely different title. It is built-in A/B testing, and they've added this feature. And so if you've ever wondered why you're seeing new titles on YouTube, this is why. It's all the YouTubers now are using this A/B test feature. And it's just a testament to how like the things that we all click on. Like there is a statistical fact that some titles are, you'll click on one title more than another, or you'll watch like the title and the thumbnail is just that important. And then YouTube has recognized this, so it allows people to test it out first.
Are quickly replaced by fodder earned through simply existing. Your hard-earned raid loot is rendered irrelevant by a 5-minute quest, and that upward mobility starts fresh as you begin to rapidly scale in power once more. The reasons for seasonality being embraced are multifaceted. It's a way to combat content bloat, which is a very real issue in theme park MMOs, who have to constantly be building on top of content that is made irrelevant by future content. It's also a way to catch players up by not putting them in the position of having to spend a long time playing to reach the quote-unquote max level and play with their friends who have already invested a ton of time into the game. It's a catch-up system masquerading as a content drop. To me, this modern seasonal philosophy is at ends with the concept of the MMO, and I don't think it fits entirely. It creates a flitting experience out of a long-term
I don't like
genre,
seasonal content
and
in MMOs,
sacrifices the best parts of an MMO, the commitments, the grinds, the wonderful payoffs for that effort, the communities that form on the back of struggle and resolution, of trade and commerce. All of this becomes ephemeral in the face of endless seasons. Talking about games, the sponsor of this video, Sword Staff, has set out to do something pretty unique. Instead of delivering a standard mobile MMORPG, they have invented a fresh design philosophy, the Third Way RPG, a synthesis of the best social elements of an MMO sans the frustrating dailies and chores, as well as the chill, relaxed nature of an idle game, without the feeling of it playing for you. I'm guessing people who watch
we gotta skip that
downloading the game. Now, back to the video. Old school RuneScape's stickiness.
I don't want seasonal in the main OSRS game ever. Maybe PvP seasonal, that's it. Yeah, I don't like the seasonal gameplay of retail WoW. It feels like you're always behind and you're wasting your time. Like, I can play for a week. I don't mind wasting time for a week, but an MMO is designed for you to play it forever. Like, that's the point of it, right? Like, you live and you are the character in this world. And there should be, I feel like there should be thousands of hours of gameplay in an MMO. And WoW, like retail WoW hasn't been that for so many years. And also classic WoW does a lot better at it because the leveling is 1 through 60. But even then, It's not thousands of hours of playtime. It's a few hundred. So I hope that Classic Plus gives us thousands of hours of gameplay in the old Classic world.
The reason it gains new players and holds on to them longer than most theme park MMOs is because it's a curated sandbox. It manages to create the excitement of a major content drop while populating that patch with features that are all evergreen, permanent, and, if tuned well, relevant forever. Because the game itself is designed to take longer than a paltry month to play through, meaning there will always be an influx of new and returning players populating both new and old areas, there is a fundamental appreciation for content being added regardless of which player base that content is catered toward. A couple developers can spend a few months designing a unique training method and in that quick turnaround create the next 15 years worth of enjoyed content. It's pretty incredible to feel the size of RuneScape's world grow, not strictly in its landmass, but in its routes too. By contrast, World of Warcraft hasn't felt like it has grown ever. It has only shrunk. The mass has increased, and because of that, the relevant chunk of content every expansion inhabits is smaller and smaller, a fraction of that overall space. Ever since I started playing a bit over 2 years ago, RuneScape has increased in size dramatically.
What he's saying is the world gets smaller and smaller with each expansion because they only let you play the new zone. They don't reuse the old zones for content very often. And you don't have any reason to ever go back to a lot of the zones once an expansion comes out. So recently, like in the Midnight expansion, you're just in Silvermoon or in the new areas around there. Like you don't really, there's like 5 new areas. Those are the only areas you go to. And so the world's getting smaller each expansion because you just have the new area and that's it.
Seeing an entirely new continent that synergizes with the original one poof onto the world map, dozens upon dozens of islands thanks to the brand new sailing skill and more to come. I think it's fair to say that this is, in the broadest and simplest terms, because RuneScape isn't seasonal. Except it is, sometimes. The vast array of cross-pollinated systems and unique avenues for progression lend themselves surprisingly well to seasonal limited-time game modes that remix those features. Around 1 year ago, I published my 3rd ever full video essay on old school RuneScape. In it, I analyzed seasonality in MMOs and used that as a vehicle to discuss my experience with RuneScape's 5th leagues, Raging Echoes. If you aren't aware, a RuneScape League is a limited-time game mode that features expedited progression through increased drop rates, multiplicatively scaled experience rates, and powerful relic unlocks that change the way you play the game. And through playing the game, you'll gain these...
Guys, I play leagues exactly the way I play retail WoW. I play for a week because any more time spent in there feels like I'm wasting progress in the real game. And I don't know, it's fun for a week for me, and then I don't feel any joy from it anymore. Like I don't feel like I want to keep playing.
Leagues points that you can use to purchase cosmetics that can be carried back with you into the main game. Raging Echoes was profoundly innovative in the scope of leagues as a RuneScape game mode. It inhabited the older Trailblazer Leagues format of region restrictions, how as you progressed you could unlock up to 3 separate regions on top of the starting one, but that's it. You couldn't enter the ones you haven't unlocked. This format creates quite a lot of theory crafting, routes, and paths planned by dedicated players to optimize their grinds and achieve the coveted Dragon Trophy for completing a whole host of league-specific tasks and earning a mountain of those leagues points. What Raging Echoes did is enhance this format in captivating ways. Most prominently were the new Echo bosses, empowered, harder versions of existing fights, some of which were completely reworked in awesome ways. To this day, a couple of these Echo fights are amongst my favorite encounters in the game, period. So in that original video, I went out of my way to clarify that 1, I want to see some of these encounters in the main game wherever possible, and 2, Jagex should not let these wonderfully designed bosses be forgotten in the next league. Don't be a Diablo 4, don't release a seasonal mechanic you spend months designing only to completely delete it from the game in the following season. Thankfully, since making that video, Diablo 4 has started to learn that lesson too. Instead, be a Path of Exile, grow the seasons, make each one feel iterative of the past while transformative of the game itself. Don't repeat yourself, improve yourself. That's the key to creating exciting seasons. These Echo bosses also dropped Echo items, completely unique, overpowered drops only obtainable in the league. So now, the routes planned around the region restrictions became even more captivating since they were heavily
You had to plan
influenced
out your
by these
item
new
build
items.
too, yeah.
Then, on top of that, the combat mastery system was added, a conscious decoupling of the relic powers from the combat-specific powers gained in the league.
Dude, a lot of
Relic
people say
powers
PoE
outside
is
of their
really good.
final
I've never
tier
played
became
PoE.
strictly utility-driven. For example, one of them allowed you to teleport to every single bank in the entire game whenever you want. Another allowed you to effectively fish and cook the food you fish as you fish it, all in twice the speed you would in the main game. It's really cool stuff, not just tiny increases to your numbers or stats. Combat masteries became the de facto progression of your power. You could earn 10 overall points and spend 7 of them on an individual combat style that you wanted to specialize in. To unlock these points, you would need to complete specific mastery challenges. It was great fun. I spent a ton of time playing Raging Echoes. It was both a way for me to glimpse toward the content I hadn't done yet, such as the Inferno and Colosseum, and a way to live out the most absurd power fantasy with the regions and relics I chose. I liked it so much that I maxed my entire account in leagues. I liked it so much that I made a second account just to try out different regions and different combat styles. What I wanted and what I specified in that video on the topic is for Jagex to iterate on all of this. I want leagues to become bigger and more exciting, more transformative, and deeper as it evolves every couple years. The format of Runescape fit this seasonal game mode a lot better than I had expected, a lot better than other incarnations of seasonal modes in MMOs. I discussed the Season of Discovery in World of Warcraft Classic, a year-long mode that quite clearly was inspired by leagues. It wasn't bad, it just wasn't nearly as interesting because the avenues that World of Warcraft has, even in its most interesting state, being the original Classic version, are still rather shallow by comparison to RuneScape. The differences were
Season of
almost
Discovery
all driven
wasn't
by
as
combat
interesting,
and
guys,
items.
because they released it in tiers. Like, imagine they released a league, but they only released one zone at a time or something like that. It just they stretched it out too far. If they had released all of Season of Discovery at the same time, it would have been insanely good. That was probably the biggest issue with it that I had, was they just stretched it out too much.
The game doesn't have the back end of 24 interconnected skills that can open up entirely unique playstyles. It just has go there, kill a boar, do a raid. And don't get me wrong, that's really fun, and World of Warcraft is the best boar killing simulator ever, and that sounds like a joke, but I'm really not joking. If you've never played WoW, especially Classic, there really is nothing like your first journey to max level. It genuinely feels transcendental and timeless in a way only a classic Blizzard game can. Which is why adapting it into a seasonal game mode doesn't really work for me. There were some great ideas, some exciting possibilities, but all it really amounted to was a whole bunch of repeated content. Classes got some new abilities here and there, but by and large were just given and fed the same exact stuff they would get in future expansions, but this time as they leveled through old game content. It's all expected, shallow. I lost interest pretty quickly. On the other hand, the retail version of WoW, much like the retail version of OSRS, RuneScape 3 also saw one of its first incarnations of a seasonal game mode with the Miss Pandaria remix and more recently, the Legion remix. Players could create new characters, experience tons of power growth, all the while being region restricted.
Yeah, I mean, all of these temporary game modes are fun for like a week, but beyond that, I don't ever really see a reason to play. So as long as you're making a league with the idea that people are going to play this for a little bit and then they're going to quit, that's great. But that to me didn't Blizzard, when they time gate everything. So it's like they're like, we'll give you this much content and then we'll give you this much content. It's all a system designed to bait your subscription. And it just feels so scummy. But if they had just released Season of Discovery and it's like, all right, this is a temporary game mode, you guys just like go play it and have fun. It's experimental. It's going to be up for, a few months. They just release it all at one time. It would have been better. It would have looked better on Blizzard too, than just like time getting the subscription, trying to make a temporary game mode like a permanent game for people. It just didn't fit. It just didn't fit well. Like whatever they had in mind, it just didn't work. And time gating the content, it just felt bad.
in one of the continents of a prior expansion. The experience was substantially worse than Season of Discovery. While that
How long was a WoW playthrough when it first came out? I mean, people were taking like 3 to 6 months to hit max level when original WoW vanilla came out. I mean, most people took about 6 months to hit max level. There was no quest guides. People didn't really know what to do to level up. Like there wasn't a meta. Like maybe some people did a dungeon, but people didn't even know where the dungeons were, you know? So nobody knew about like Defias Brotherhood quest lines. There was no rested XP telling you an arrow to follow. People didn't degen video games as much as they do nowadays. And there certainly weren't people playing video games for a living. With streamers and stuff like that and YouTubers creating content for the game. So it's just people just leveled really slow and casually back in the day. And maybe somebody that was really fast would level in like 2 months to max level. And now people do it in 5 days, like 5 days played or 4 days played. So I think that while Classic WoW shouldn't balance it around the full-time gamers, it should be more than like 6 to 8 days played for an average person to hit level 60, I think. I think the journey should be a bit longer. But a lot of people don't agree with that, and I can't understand why. Because the journey is like the main part of the gameplay.
Of WoW at least had some pretense, some excitement in the possibility of injecting novelty into a traditional MMO, retail WoW is barely even an MMO anymore. It's purely seasonal. It already feels like a seasonal game mode. It's super shallow in its progression, which means that the only thing you really did in this version was run around and kill stuff very fast and get items that don't really do anything other than make your damage number higher and your abilities cool down faster. It's super boring, super binary, and entirely lacking in even a modicum of creativity or consideration. There were no builds, nothing to theory craft. It was just a binary, dumbed down experience. The benefit of having so much evergreen, relevant content in Runescape is it allows the game to essentially create an ARPG out of an MMORPG. Since Runescape is a blend of 2 subgenres, maybe unintentionally, that creates enough flexibility in its format to allow for genre-breaking adaptation. And that's really weird, right? I can't think of another game that does this. It's another feather in the cap of RuneScape-specific, RuneScape-unique features and achievements that not enough people are recognizing. At least not in my opinion. Leagues is a league. The name isn't an accident. It's clearly inspired by Path of Exile and other successful ARPGs, as it evolved from Twisted to Trailblazer and then to Raging Echoes. The identity has only become clearer, and in becoming clearer, we ended up doing some pretty batshit insane stuff. So let's talk about that. This is the part of the video where I give as holistic a subjective review of the newest league as I can. I won't really address the relics as I think they are by and large a huge improvement over Raging Echoes, and I won't focus on the general similarities between leagues themselves. The format is the format. You either love it or hate it. League 6, Demonic Pacts, released a few weeks ago, and I am happy to say that most of my suggestions and hopes for the follow-up to Raging Echoes were met and then some. The format of Trailblazer with the region restrictions, the exciting echo bosses of Raging Echoes, and now the expanded combat mastery system transformed into Demonic Pacts. A talent tree.
I like the talent tree.
Because obviously, right? The closer to PoE we become, the more blatant the inspiration can be. Dozens upon dozens of nodes, capstones, fillers, it's reminiscent of the beloved PoE tree rendered in a quaint microcosm, a distillation of possibilities. Instead of choosing a combat style to specialize in, you can now just specialize, make a build, designed, curated, and influenced by the regions you chose, by the grinds you complete. Genuinely, this is the coolest thing. I love what they did here, and that's despite the myriad flaws of the talent tree itself, many of which we will discuss soon. If Raging Echoes was an alpha, Demonic Pact feels like a beta or even an archetypal release, a polished representation of the bare-bones architecture that now exists to be fully expanded on in future leagues. Remixed, altered, manipulated in new and exciting ways. Demonic Pacts was a leap in an exciting direction. I think League 7, the next one, whatever that happens to be, will be the destination that is being leapt toward. But that's not all. The starting experience.
I wonder what leagues, like what they could do in League 7 to build upon what they did in this last league. I mean, I did think that I did like the talent trees and the flexibility of like, you know, choosing your zone and building a specific build. Like if you're going to go crossbow, you went wilderness. So you get the KBD weapon. I would have liked some ability where you could like go kill all of the echo bosses, because I wasn't going to make another character to go try them. Maybe at some point you could just like cap your league points, or just stop getting league points. Like you could just say, all right, I can't get any more league points on this account. Like you lock your account, and then that unlocks all the other zones, so you can just go have fun with it. That would be kind of cool. I can't think of any more features or anything that I would want in the next one. Would you guys maybe want like a bigger talent tree or more echo weapons, more echo bosses? You know, can you guys think of anything that maybe you would like to see in the next one? Group Iron Man League. Did Sard beat the Shark Trial yet? No, I haven't beat it yet. A world boss, a more balanced talent tree. Okay. It would be nice if like some of the stuff was good. You know, like Melee was trash early on. I like to do every content, even if I can't get more points too. Hell yeah, Blaze. That's what I'm thinking. A lot of the packs are bad, so they could buff them. That would be great. They did buff them. It took them a while though. Mainstay's cooking. What did Mainstay say? A UIM league. Oh God. I don't know about that. That'd be crazy. All right. I didn't see any crazy good ideas, so that makes me think maybe they're doing a great job. No, Sailing League, I don't know about that.
Experience itself has changed too. Misthalin, the starter region.
Would you guys like to play Hardcore League? Would anybody play a Hardcore League? No? Okay.
For most of the prior leagues is unavailable, burnt by Yama, so they say, the demon in charge of the whole affair. Instead, we start in Volamor, the newest region, a callback to the very first league that took place entirely in Karend, the first ever new region in RuneScape at the time. Unlike Karend, Volamor is a lot more fleshed out and thought out, lending itself well to being a league starter. From there, you get the free unlock of Karamja and then 3 additional regional options as you progress. I chose Volamor in Raging Echoes, so I was pretty familiar with its content, now even larger thanks to the additions of the Rainforest, Auburn Vale, and the endgame Doom boss. It's a great idea and totally spiced up the early game. By that same token, I played a ton of Demonic Pacts too. Like Raging Echoes, I had 2 accounts with different builds and regions. While I didn't care to max this time around, I did spend a ton of time just grinding out points for the cosmetic rewards released at the end of leagues. Overall, the experience of Demonic Pacts was just Raging Echoes, but better in almost every way. It was paced slower thanks to how incrementally dished out the Demonic Pacts themselves were, but that's good. One of my biggest criticisms of Raging Echoes was how quickly you plateau in power. It's relatively easy to just get your combat capped out, get one decent enough weapon, and your overall power level doesn't really ever change again, which might be fine for a 2-week-long game mode, but doesn't work as well for a 6 or 8-week-long one. I wanted to play more and keep progressing in Raging Echoes, and these Demonic Pacts created enough incremental power growth to act as incentives to continue. I wouldn't be surprised if I spent more than double the amount of time on my first Demonic Pacts character as I did
theory-wise really like this league,
at least to cap out in power. A game mode that takes this amount of time to develop should probably house enough content paced out well enough to not become dry for most players a few days in. As the league's format continues to grow in the future, I hope to see more and more content be added. New echo bosses with new items, twists on the skill trees, entirely different branches and possibilities. You can do so much with this format. Imagine an implementation of some of the randomized roles and affixes one would see in an ARPG like Path of Exile. Maybe items that drop can roll unique effects on top of their existing stats. What if your powerful Ultor Ring can now cause your special attacks with one-handed melee weapons to hit all targets in a cone in front of you? What if the bronze dagger that you just picked up off a goblin did water damage? I don't know. Embrace the best and most exciting elements of an ARPG. Leagues isn't just a way to level up your skills, but 16 times faster. It's so much more than that. If I were to emphasize a specific suggestion I made in my original video, it's the tasks themselves. RuneScape 3, our sister game, had its very first league last year, and it was mired in many issues, as all first leagues tend to be. I still enjoyed it and made an entire video analyzing the game thanks to it, but there were issues nonetheless. Something the RS3 leagues did that I was disappointed to not see in Demonic Pacts is this right here, a little menu that contextually showcases nearby leagues tasks you can pursue for points. The amount of time I spend scouring the league's wiki to filter through tasks is obnoxious. I love the Runescape wiki, but sometimes it felt like I spent more time looking at it than playing the league itself. The issue is that OSRS has a lot less
because you have to track your achievements.
Originally, I wanted to see the official client populate what would be the Runelight widget with this kind of task list, but I'm not sure what the official client is even doing anymore. If Jagex isn't interested in expanding the official client to be functional and usable by regular players, why not consciously team up with Runelight and develop out a pop-up widget that would allow users to track, catalog, and filter tasks in a manageable way? Food for thought for League 7. It's also not all sunshine and rainbows on the combat side of things. The kind of complexity and depth offered by Demonic Pacts is also prone to issues, as any great or not so great ARPG has. Poor balancing, underbaked rewards, and maybe even some bugs. To Jagex's credit, they were pretty responsive to some changes. We saw buffs to certain passive bonuses in the talent tree to bring some underperforming builds up to parity and more, but honestly, I don't think it was enough. Something I would caution is that in developing a deeper system like this, you need to be a lot more agile with adjustments, especially prior to release.
Bruh, imagine we had some of the third-party website stuff actually built into the game where it could highlight and you could filter your tasks of like by who did it, which tasks have been done by the most people, and you could filter like wood cutting tasks. That would be insane if they had that in the game. But like, he is right. Most of the time I was playing leagues, I had the wiki open and I was just filtering for new tasks, and I was filtering by like most completed, or I was filtering by most points, and then I was looking for what I could do from there. I was never looking at the game. I actually never even looked at the game, at what the game offered, because I just know that it's not as good as the third-party websites.
Many, if not most, of the biggest flaws of tuning were things people already called out like a week before the leagues even launched. When the Demonic Pact tree was revealed and discussed by the player base, this was the perfect opportunity to make adjustments. No one was locked into regions or relics yet. People were still in the theory crafting stage. In the future, I genuinely think the talent tree should be revealed as the first thing in the leagues and iterated on with the player base to file down some of the most glaring issues before everything goes live. I, like many, was bitten by the theory crafting bug. It's in my name after all. I think I spent the better part of the week preceding the league's release just talking and thinking about my route, both with my group Ironman partner and fellow video essayist Idle. We had an entire group chat where I spent dozens of hours calculating builds, creating progression paths, discussing relic choices, and more. I was a participant in the league's Discord, shilling for my homebrewed Spellblade build, and overall just so captivated by the possibilities. There is just so much more here than in Raging Echoes. While my grasp of the game has become far greater, retrospectively, Raging Echoes looks borderline shallow by comparison. And that's great. I love how Demonic Pacts ratcheted up the stakes and decisions. After all, that's part of the fun of creating builds. The problem, of course, is that a lot of these things simply weren't as good as others. While a disparity in balance is expected in any RPG and certain builds have specific strengths over others, I would say the disparities here are a bit too extreme. And that's for a specific reason: a lack of combat diversity. For example, there were no pinnacle bosses or uber bosses to challenge, which limits what a build.
Dude, I swear, guys, I really thought they were gonna release a epic Yama boss that you needed some insane build for, and there was going to be only like maybe one builder in the game or something that was able to beat it. And so that alone would make you want to like re-roll your account or something. The super Yama boss, because it said that minions wouldn't work on Yama. It said that the executioner's axe wouldn't work on Yama. And I thought ultimate Yama, or like whatever they call Uber Yama in Diablo, was gonna be like the end boss. Now, I did have this theory that they might release the Yama boss on 6/6/26, which is in 3 weeks from now. So that theory could still be on par, but it's looking grim right now.
Build can excel in. In ARPGs, you may see builds that thrive in maps, clears of dozens if not hundreds of enemies in mere seconds, or bossing, huge burst damage and survivability. Here, in Runescape, you are more likely to see just damage and survivability. There really isn't a use for much else. There were specific avenues for utility, but the best builds did both. They really didn't have weaknesses and strengths, specialties. They just kind of did it all, and I think that's a bit of an oversight. Being the first ever RuneScape skill tree means that oversights are expected. For example, the heavy melee blind bag build was immediately captivating to myself and many others. You had a chance to pull out a random weapon from your inventory and losslessly smack your enemy with it. It sounded fun, and in practice, it was really fun. You would just watch your character swing at an enemy recursively as the blind bag had a chance to trigger itself. Visually, no notes. Tuning-wise, yeah, it's definitely on the weaker end, especially when it required the most effort to put together thanks to its demand of multiple high-end weapons in your inventory at once. It didn't offer much sustain, took up precious inventory slots, and didn't exactly perform the best damage-wise, as compared to the borderline AFK builds possible. This isn't made more heartening by the fact that the capstone node is a paltry 10% maximum hit increase. Just lame, honestly, that's just lame. There are nodes out there that make your crossbows permanently max hit and roll almost perfect accuracy, and go figure the crossbow build was incredibly powerful, to the point where there was a running gag within the league's Discord of calculating the blind bag damage with full best in slot against a naked man with a rune crossbow just to see if it is outperformed. Pretty lame. The issues don't stop there. The echo items this time around were almost all changed. The same echo bosses, for the most part, returned, just dropping new stuff. And most of the stuff was just worse than what they replaced. Less powerful, less exciting, less transformative.
Fremenic hype! And did anybody go Fremenic and get the helm? There was like a statistic, it was like 0.2% of people went Fremenic.
Personally, I would have loved to see both items from Raging Echoes and this one be on the same drop table. This to me would have opened up a ton more options for build craft. Items overall felt weaker and less build defining, but there are some caveats. The King's Barrage crossbow from the Wilderness was badass and powerful. The elemental magic weapons in Kandarin were totally busted beyond belief and very fun to use. But that's kinda it. On the topic of blind bag, there were no echo items designed for blind bag. Instead, we got semi-useless stuff like this bow from Hispori. I think most people would agree that Hispori should have dropped a giant—
Yeah, there were a lot of really cool talents that didn't have an echo item to go with them. For blind bag, you had to use a halberd. There were no echo halberds. That could have made blind bag more exciting.
giant fuck off tree branch that you would use for your blind bag build, rather than this dinky heal bow that I don't think I saw anyone ever use a single time. I was most excited to use the dagger from Cerberus. I designed my entire build around it, the Fang of the Hound, or as it became colloquially known, the Dogger, because it's a dagger and it drops
from a dog.
It's the first ever melee weapon in the game that has unique spell-based synergies, as whenever you attack with it, you have a chance to trigger a fire spell called Flames of Cerberus. Alongside this, its special attack automatically
I used the
triggers
dagger
spell, and said spell
in the test
acts
playthrough that I
like a
did.
fire spell, meaning it would benefit from your opponent's fire weaknesses. The builds create themselves, right? Especially when one looks at the fire branch of the skill tree and sees all kinds of fun synergies with this effect. That's where my de facto Spellblade build was born. I wanted to be a mage that used melee weapons to execute powerful bouts of spellcraft. Sounds pretty cool. Now, all of these plans kind of fell apart when you start looking at the numbers. And while some people might say, just play whatever you find fun, I find doing big damage fun. That's part of why becoming powerful in an ARPG is dope, and what drives studios to create build parity. Because this league doesn't have a pinnacle boss or specific specialties like mapping to excel at, you either do damage, do sustain, or do both at varying degrees. No one wants to invest a ton of time into something only to be worse than everyone else at everything. That's made worse by the fact that this is, despite being ARPG adjacent, still an MMO at the end of the day. So this really awesome sounding weapon was unfortunately, at least in my opinion, woefully undertuned. It had the stats of a dragon dagger, which is to say very poor accuracy, and even more damning, the fire spell itself was weak. Very weak. it maxed a 10, so even if the enemy had a whopping 50% fire weakness, it'd only give the weapon a spell damage increase of 5, at most. Paired with the offhand Devil's Element item from the Kandarin region, I really thought like I was cooking. This offhand applied a massive 30% weakness to all element types, meaning theoretically, this dagger could be extremely synergetic with this item equipped. There was even a hybrid node lower in the skill tree that applied mage and melee damage to whatever you have equipped to your offhand, making it even better. But no, because the stats on the dagger were so bad and the spell was so weak, the amount of bonus damage gained from this synergy doesn't outweigh the accuracy and flat damage gained from just having an early game Dragon Defender equipped. I can't help but feel like this was a failure of design. I refuse to believe they created all of these consciously synergistic elements only to make them worse than a early game Dragon Defender. The dagger itself was better used not as a spell damage melee weapon, you know, the one unique thing about it, but as a random item you have equipped while doing the Thorns build, a totally broken, almost fully AFK route that some people took. Personally,
I don't know why they done, like, as the league is happening, why don't they just be ready to buff the things that suck? Is that a crazy concept? I mean, they didn't buff the Fremennik helm at all. Like, they could have done that, right?
Personally, I don't find Thorns all too fun, as I don't want to AFK in leagues, but that's not to say it shouldn't exist. I don't think it deserves—
It's a temporary game mode. Like, you would have to do it pretty quickly. Why don't they just calculate that in, like, to adjust the numbers on stuff that no one's playing?
a nerf or anything like that. It's great for those that like that. I just can't help but feel disappointed by the spell power dagger not working well with spell power. That's weird. I don't like that. This kind of imbalance is a personal example, one that affected me, which kind of sucks because the elemental spells themselves are awesome. What Jagex did with them is so exciting that I can't even bring myself to look at the main game element.
If you buff echo items in the league, people might regret not taking the zone. No, because then you create a culture of picking what you think is fun and knowing that Jagex has your back, that you pick something that you think is fun, even if it sucks, you know, by next week, it won't suck because Jagex has your back and they're going to buff your build if it sucks. And then you're truly picking what's fun and what you actually want to play, not some meta build that does the most damage. You're building a trust with the players are building a trust with the company and saying that they know Jagex is going to, we know Jagex is going to balance the game. It's a temporary game mode. They won't let Fremennik Helm suck. They won't just let it sit there. I want to go Fremennik Helm because it looks cool. It looks fun to play. And I know that in a week or two that they're going to buff it and make it strong. But that's not the case. So now no one's going to go Fremennik.
Elemental spells anymore. Effectively just recolored, boring abilities no one uses past the early and mid game. In leagues, each one was given unique effects from investing in their talents, from max hitting with air spells dependent on your prayer bonus, to crazy overhealing with water spells, to these really, really cool AoE bounces with fire spells that I particularly loved using on any content.
Once League releases, they should put minimal dev time into it and go back to the main game. How long does it take to change the numbers? Like, just to change the strength of an item? Like, I don't know. If it's like, just give it more damage or something, like just change the number on the the
featuring multiple high-level targets.
I don't know how to do it. That sounds simple, but I've never done it.
Is great. The tuning, though, left a lot to be desired. The goal isn't just to create usable builds, but to emphasize the most creative builds. It's paramount that a developer envision the use cases and then designed around the most exciting ones. While one can argue that the dagger paired with thorns is powerful, which it is, I think it'd be far harder to argue that it's a creative synergy, because it isn't a synergy at all. It's like designing a mega rare item that's just a ring slot stat stick. Sure, it's big damage, but it's also nothing else. Using the dagger with thorns is a choice strictly made by those without better alternatives. To be clear, these criticisms only stem from the fact that this leagues had so much more to it than Raging
I used the
Echoes.
Dogger Thorns
Even if
build
the next
in the
league is as
test realm. It was
problematic
pretty
in its
good.
design, I
Not
would
as good as
still
Crossbow
prefer
though.
it over reverting back to the binaries that once existed.
Or Whip.
The prior league capping out in power.
Whip was actually better than the dagger. And that was where I was like, oh, that kind of sucks, because dagger was like the only other new item that was under 1 kg that had a cool special attack. And I swear Whip was just better.
Power after just a couple days, with every single person running around with the same exact
When did you test leagues? Did you watch the video where that they released where I showed off the Thorns build? Me, Foe, and Zizaran. I got to play before it came out.
Of mega rares looks far less
it's on the
exciting
official OSRS channel
by the myriad successes of demonic pacts. I loved what they did here, even if it was imperfect. Here are a few more random criticisms I have. In leagues, Jagex needs to consider bosses that just kind of don't translate. I love Perilous Moons in the main game. There are issues with some of their encounter designs, but overall, they're a great early mid-game boss. In leagues, they are fucking unbearable, genuinely some of the least fun pieces of content in the entire game, and everyone felt funneled into them thanks to how powerful some of the rewards are and due to Varlamore being a starting region. Each boss has these extended moments of downtime that aren't particularly fun in the main game because outside of like 1 or 2, they require virtually no effort or optimization. There's no way to speed them up, no skill expression. Hell, there are some where you can literally just stand around and AFK in the middle of a boss fight.
So I actually talked about this in my last video with Araxor. I love the bosses where if you're able to do a more complex mechanic like stepping under the boss, it does more damage to him. That's a skill expression with a DPS increase. Click better, you do more damage. In Moons, you're just auto attacking and hoping that you don't get frozen by the blue one, right? So there's no skill expression that you can really do there to just kill the boss. It's a completely gear dependent.
In leagues, hitting these points of downtime is infuriating since leagues is all about speeding
up. Yeah, like Yama Godfly, like the way that you do Yama, maximizing your ticks to dodge mechanic, more DPS, skill expression.
Downtime. What is a bit lame in the main game is made maddening here. The second
Blood
point
Moon
is
step
dry
under,
protection. I've always been opposed to flat dry protection systems in the main game. I like Oathblade shards, for example, but don't really think they belong on every boss. In leagues, I think there's a bit more of a conversation to be had. Going 5x dry while far quicker a grind than the main game thanks to your damage output somehow feels much worse because it's leagues. It's not supposed to happen that way. In my humble opinion, a dry protection system where certain uniques are guaranteed after you go 2x or 3x the rate for them would be fine. Of course,
in a league.
Only in leagues though. The relics were overall great, compelling choices that were less black and white than in Raging Echoes. However, resources
I spent 12 hours on Zulrah in League for my 300 KC. It was ass.
Kind of suck to get sometimes, especially food. I would have loved to see a passive gathering rate increase for fishing by maybe around 25% as an unlock after tier 3 or tier 4. Also, I think doing the same exact kind of janky, kind of bad quest to unlock Karambwans isn't really too necessary anymore, especially considering how many quests the players have to chew through in leagues anyway. Personally, I think all quest content should be unlocked with all quests not being done. That way people who enjoy questing for experience can do that, while people who don't have to do it. And that's about it. The adaptability of RuneScape stems in major part from its cross-pollinated skilling, meticulous balance, and evergreen content. You can functionally drop a person in any region in the game and they will have something relevant to do there. That is what makes leagues possible. That is what makes RuneScape operate as both a great ARPG for a few weeks and a great MMO for the rest of the year. Because no other MMO has this level of cross-pollinated skilling and content, no other MMO is able to contort its body in such a way as to inhabit alternate genres at a whim. And that's never more true when you realize that RuneScape wears more than one hat. It's not just an ARPG on demand. It's also an extraction game? Yeah, so Deadman Mode. A thing I never thought I'd play because frankly, I don't PvP.
Deadman Mode is so good. It's actually so much fun for the first week when everybody's playing, except for those naked rushers. Those guys sucked.
I like PvP, I think it's cool, but it's borderline impenetrable. However, when Jagex revealed some neat cosmetic rewards as well as touting the approachability of this year's Deadman, as well as my own participation in the creator-driven Deadman Factions mode, I felt like I should at least check it out. And I'm glad I did, for the most part. Much like Leagues, Deadman is a multi-week, limited-time game mode that pumps players full of buffs like bonus experience and all kinds of powers. But unlike Leagues, its main focus is on PvP, players killing each other and looting each other's bloody, mangled bodies. Unlike the main game, Deadman has precious few safe zones. PvP isn't just restricted to the wilderness, it's something that can occur almost anywhere. And to the average scaper who is aware of just how enormous the skill ceiling is between them and Odablock, that's a tough sell. How do you incentivize people to engage in a game mode that punishes you for being worse at the game? Not through delaying how quickly you achieve something.
A hot take, everything punishes you for being worse at the game, and the way you get better is you just do more of it. Like, I sucked at the beginning of Deadman Mode, and by the end of it, I was killing people that had been playing the game for like 5 years, and they're like, I can't believe I just got killed by Sard, because I was putting a lot of work in to try to get better at it. But the thing is like, people don't even want to try. I mean, I understand if you don't have fun doing it, like, don't do it. But you will get better if you try.
But by literally stripping you of what you earned. There is an uphill climb to sell Deadman to a player base that isn't particularly amicable to the idea of PvP, so much so that I sat down with the creator Framed on my second channel, Theorywiser, and talked about the issues with PvP and the wilderness a month or so ago. Feel free to check it out, you'll find the link in the description. So much like in the League section, let's summarize my
what the heck happened to the video?
PMM. In an effort to market this game mode, Jagex reassured skeptics that this Deadman would be far more approachable than the prior one, mainly through advertising it as a skew of Leagues. Now you get all kinds of powers that, like in Leagues, augment your skilling and PVM, and these powers are obtained through purchasing them with Deadman points that are earned through similar enough means. Not tasks like in Leagues, but just leveling milestones and generally playing the game. As you earn Deadman points, they also aggregate in the main game and allow you to purchase cosmetics, just like in Leagues. These points are earned through doing everything other than PvP, which I don't get. I don't understand why that's the case. That's probably the most immediate criticism I have of the game mode.
I thought that was kind of weird too, that you had to do so much PVM and you didn't get credit for anything PvP. Like, you didn't get any points at all really for it. Is there any reason to PvP besides just getting better in Deadman Mode? Do you get anything? You just get loot and economy, right? I don't know how they prevent Deadman Mode from just turning into a breach and log out. It would have been super easy to boost otherwise. What, like letting people kill you? Is that a big deal in a temporary game mode? I don't know. Some sort of way to incentivize PvP would be cool, other than you're just kind of like bothering people. I don't know how they can do it. It is tough to like give people a reason to PvP.
If I were just to assume why, it's because there is an issue with exploiting the system by having players either buy or funnel points through sacrificing their lives. Now, I think this could have been balanced by the risk you have, for example. The more you're risking, the more points you give for dying. On the other hand, I wonder if balance here is even needed, considering Deadman Mode isn't an Iron Man game mode, so you can trade with other players and use the auction house. Exploiting it is already guaranteed. Creators, for example, can have their fans funnel early game gold into them.
Yeah, I mean, by the end of it, people were giving me stuff that they didn't, because they weren't going to be playing anymore, so they would just give stuff that whenever they're quitting. But other than that, like, I don't know how you prevent boosting of like gold and stuff wise, because it's a temporary game mode. Like, people are going to give their stuff away
so they can get ahead. And that's fine, it comes with the territory. The bigger issue is the disparity this causes between those checking the game mode out for the first time and those that are planning around it. Unlike in leagues where foes' meticulous routing helps new players, the routing in DMM is nothing but immense, uncompromising pressure. When you spawn in the game, you have a limited amount of time until you become attackable, so in that time, you need to get as much shit done as humanly possible. The meta route for getting it done is tight and feels mandatory. If you fall behind, the task of catching up can feel fruitless. For example, in our first hour or two, my friend and I needed to get enough prayer levels for protection prayers to prepare for the first breach. A breach is an event that occurs in Deadman that sees a whole host of bosses spawn in select locations. These happened every few hours. Killing them rewards loads of supplies, a chance at rare weapons and armor, and of course, Deadman points. Breaches are really the fabric holding the entire game mode together. Preparing for a breach and then engaging it to obtain as much loot as possible is part of the excitement and part of the pressure. It's what brings
anybody
players
ended up
together
doing.
and incentivizes people to plan around the game mode. My friend and I quickly fell behind as it was our first DMM experience. As our timers ran out and we became gankable, all hell broke loose. At this point, most of the prepared veteran players were snowballing their leads, whether by using the assets given to them by their fans or by simply knowing what to do. All of us newbies, those that Jagex marketed this game mode towards specifically, kind of got lost in the shuffle, and falling behind in Deadman, which is to say losing all of the stuff in your inventory and on your character, is demoralizing, more so when the game mode has barely just begun. You've fallen behind before the race hit its first milestone, and that really sucked. Jagex implemented a couple things to alleviate this problem, such as removing bank keys, a system that existed in older Deadman modes where the player who kills you can also loot your bank and take some of your most valuable resources. Truly wild. I definitely would not have played if this was in the game. But it was still a rough start, to the point where we debated giving up, as the feeling of perpetually falling behind in a limited time game mode felt terrible. This high-pressure race wasn't fun for us, and while it could certainly be more fun with experience, if the goal is to get those with less experience into the game mode, such a chaotic and skill-expressive first hour is a surefire way to...
I don't know how they could implement a MMR system into Deadman mode where it would be cool if you could be on a server or be playing with other noobs, but people would obviously smurf and make like smurf accounts to just dump on the noobs. It would be cool to be on a server where, I mean, that's why they have the brackets and stuff, but I mean, there's still insanely good players in the 60 bracket, right? You have guys like, Skill Specs and Pure Spam making, level 60 alts. Pretty sure Alfie had one or stayed at level 60 for a long time. I don't know how to like perfectly balance Deadman mode. It is a tough game design.
To not do that. If I had to make a suggestion, just in my own personal, subjective, totally personal opinion, I would recommend creating a safer jumpstart avenue for new players. Maybe starting zones in the game would be fully safe, but cap the amount of experience you can acquire within them. So you could spend as much time as you want setting up your character's early game without just camping in the region forever and getting like 99s. While these first hours were miserable, thankfully, I powered through. Deadman mode is split into bracketed worlds. Levels 3 to 60 are one bracket, 60 to 80 is another, and so on. This way, high-level players can't just gang up on low-level players, and low-level players can create unique builds to facilitate their playstyle. I felt like focusing on being a pure, so level 1 defense but high offensive combat stats. I thought it would be a fun way to learn how to PvP, as the emphasis would be placed on hitting dank combos rather than intense 3-way tri-breeding. It also allowed me to risk less. I spent much of my time in this main Varlamore hub area where a whole host of low-level players were thieving for gold. It was a way for me to gank players and earn some income to purchase my PKing setup. Realistically, this wasn't a super high skill or ideal place to linger because I was just kind of running down semi-AFK players. I fully recognize that this comes off as lacking in whatever honor there is in PvP. But it's also a PvP game mode.
I'm gonna be so ready for the next Deadman mode, guys. We're gonna go hard the first week. First day right out the gate, I'm gonna know what to do next time.
To make do with what I had, which is limited knowledge. and also an incentive to earn money, successfully loot
Is it crazy that I'm looking forward to the next Deadman mode, but I really don't care too much about the next leagues? Everyone said I was going to love leagues more than Deadman, but I feel like Deadman mode is like really exciting. Like it's a really exciting temporary game mode because I don't really want to do PvP that much in the game. But like to take a vacation from my Iron Man for a week and just go PvP without having to worry about losing items in the real game, like that is a cool ass idea for a temporary game mode to me. I just like that a lot.
breaches and then slowly dip my toes into some real fights. The main place I did this was actually in this Varlamore area too, as I wasn't the only person ganking these thieves. In fact, during the first week of Deadman, most of my time PKing and having real fights was right here. It was really cool going from killing the lobies to defending them from people in my position earlier, and eventually butting heads with some real big dogs, at least within these early brackets. On my first account, I completely fucked up and accidentally leveled past this bracket, and not wanting to create an entirely new build in the next bracket, I just ended up using a new account and remade the peer I just had. Which was a smart thing to do because at the end of Deadman, I traded in all my Deadman points and made like 300 million gold in the main game. Not too bad. The main issue with DMM was this friction of identity. Too much of the mode was catering to players who wouldn't enjoy PvP and wanted to skill. And that created a really toxic interaction wherein ganking those players resulted in nasty messages and overall confusion. In the future, Jagex needs to smooth out the onboarding without selling the game mode as a League's Light, because it really isn't. Instead, incentivize those players to check out PvP. Through these incentives.
Yeah, I wonder like if there should be some kind of reward for killing X amount of players. You get a trophy like you do in League. Like there should be some kind of incentive to go out and kill people.
Incentives through making players see the joy in PvP, I think more players would end up coming around to PvP in the main game too. But the restrictive nature of PvP and OSRS, both from a skill standpoint.
Okay, so in order to prevent boosting, you don't allow people to kill the same guy twice. You have to kill 100 unique people or 1,000 unique people. And like the chances of an average person, yeah, Odablock could find 1,000 people to come stand in a spot while he kills them all. But that's none of you guys are going to be able to farm like 1,000 people, right? Wouldn't be surprised if a clan gets together and they still boost. They would just turn it into a service. Ban it. Just make it bannable. I don't know. Like that. Like that's the only way you could do it, right? Is you had to tell people like, hey, this is a way to abuse it. If you do this, it's bannable. And then if you get banned for it, then it's like, that's on you.
And an onboarding one creates an unscalable brick wall. The risk reward of Deadman without the permanent losses of the main game is a good sell, but Jagex needs to hone in on selling those things. For example, they could have rewarded more Deadman points for those players skilling in areas further away from safe zones. Alongside this, the further away you are, the more experience you should get. That way, you can't just camp a safe zone for most of your levels. The point of this mode is to push you out of your comfort zone because by engaging in PvP, you aren't really losing anything, at least not anything super tangible. I would have loved build kits being offered for players too. Not everyone understands how PvP works and not everyone knows how to build a character. Creating in-game guidance for that in-game modes like these wouldn't be an issue for me. Tell people what stats they need for an adequate pure. Finally, creating clarity in multi-combat and single combat zones is crucial. Right now, RuneScape's world is divided into mostly single combat zones with a sparse speckling of multi-combat areas that are borderline impossible to recognize unless you have an ugly plugin installed. I hate this system, and getting lured into multi-combat generally only occurs when a player's lack of knowledge is exploited. This is made worse when this logic is applied to the entire game world. Like, that Varlamore area I did most of my PvP at is a single combat zone, unless you walk up the stairs to the flight path. Then it becomes multi. Why? Who knows? Just pay attention to your chat box, I guess. Very annoying and unnecessarily obtuse, especially when this lack of clarity leads to losing hours upon hours.
The multi-zones, bro, they were pretty tragic. dying sometimes in the multi-zones, like just porting in on the Quetzal or whatever, or porting in, you're just in the multi-zone, there's people camping the ports. That's kind of cringe.
Of progression. Surprising even myself, I enjoyed DMM a lot. There were issues, but the improvements from what I saw were major. I think breaches are a clusterfuck, but in a pretty fun way. The ability to dip your toe into the PvP scene is only a positive as far as I'm concerned, and like in Leagues, I hope Jagex continues to build on this game mode with iterative design philosophies. This game mode is an extraction game though, right? Tell me I'm not the only one who sees this. You build up supplies through risking your existing materials in unsafe areas where you can skill, i.e. loot, or fight other players for what they are carrying. Then upon
Yeah, I wonder if like in these zones, if you like kill another player in this zone, then you would get an emblem instead of killing PV like a PVM. Like if there was a zone that spawned, it's like, all right, if you kill anybody in this zone, then you get like really expensive items. So you have to go there and can like win a 1v1. So you're going there and you're trying to like find the weakest guy you can find to try and like pick a fight with. I don't know if that would work.
Upon killing them, loot their corpse and quickly scurry back to safety with your newly
Deadman
acquired
chest
valuables.
is like not.
Extract.
You have to sit.
It
You have
heavily
to
reminded
stand
me
there
of my
and for a
experience
minute
with
and
Arc
loot.
Raiders, a simplified version of the rather complex and dense extraction shooter genre that preceded it. Games like Tarkov felt a bit too obtuse and unapproachable in the same way that RuneScape's PvP does. By simplifying the process, making deaths less punishing, and overall broadening appeal, Arc managed to introduce a whole new demographic of players into a genre they never thought they'd enjoy. Me included.
So in Arc Raiders, you drop in and you don't have to fight anyone. You can try and just get loot and get out, like an extraction game. It is an extraction game. That's what an extraction game is. You drop in, you try to get loot and get out without dying, but you can get killed by other people and then they can take your stuff, but you have a safe spot, a safe pocket. In some builds, you have like 3 safe pockets, so you could save 3 of your items always. And Arc Raiders has done it the best, like done PvP the best that I've seen so far, because I'm not at risk of losing like my most valuable items, but I can go in and fight and I'll still lose something. So it does hurt to die, but it's not that bad. I feel like Arc Raiders was really, really fun, especially when it first came out.
You balance your social skills with your bloodlust, your risk, and your reward.
It would be, maybe they do need like a safe row. Well, the thing is, if you don't attack, then you actually have your items. If you don't get skulled in Deadman, or are you always skulled in Deadman? I don't remember how it worked. I think if you skull up, you lose everything. But if you just get attacked by someone, then you don't lose everything?
And formed parties to shore up each other's weaknesses. Taking down some of the largest enemies in Arc kind of felt like a miniature version of a breach in DMM. It was relatively rare to get ganked here because most players were focusing on prioritizing the high value target, the NPC. Then, upon downing said target, whoever got the lion's share of loot, in this case a valuable drop, became a target themselves. In RuneScape, this manifested as a colored skull over your head that changed depending on how much value you had at any given time.
Right.
In Arc, it was a bullseye that formed on.
In Arc, you can't really see who has good loot on them. In RuneScape, you know. Also, this system was kind of janky. Like if you had Ranger boots, you were just a red skull. And Ranger boots are worth nothing in Deadman. It's like they kind of need their own grand exchange prices. Like it needs to be linked to the Deadman Mode grand exchange prices. These skulls above your head.
On the backs of each player who just downed the queen, for example. It wasn't uncommon for these players to get shot in the back, either by their original teammates or by strangers scoping them out and watching them fight from a distance. These interpersonal dynamics forced by the increasing risk of doing any single thing in the game is what drew such a wide audience to enjoy their time with it. The rather dense and obtuse nature of RuneScape PvP definitely holds it back from that mainstream appeal, but DMM is a great opportunity to file those edges down. In fact, I would like to see DMM take on the air of a testing ground, a place to potentially test features that could make their way into the main game. That's not to say I want to see timed events like breaches. I don't think they belong in RuneScape. but taking ideas from other successful extraction games could create some much needed innovation in the PvP space. And right now, it desperately needs it. If I have learned anything over my time playing old school RuneScape, it's that PvP, at least from the perspective of many of its biggest and most influential content creators, is dying. Or at least struggling. Not enough new blood drives its popularity, and its lack of popularity gives less incentive to add content to it, which feeds into its lack of interest and so on. It's a spiral of decline. The success of Ark as an extraction shooter proves that not only does risk appeal, it can form the backbone to someone's engagement, but it can't be too much as that causes paralysis for average players. Again, not saying they should remove high-risk elements of RuneScape PvP, by no means am I suggesting that, but creating alternatives is an intelligent thing to do.
People aren't going to be as afraid to risk a Gmaul if the Gmauls aren't 1 million. Like, they got to make the Gmauls way cheaper so people aren't afraid of losing them. It's too much risk when the Gmauls are still worth 1 million. Like, they should drop some of the more popular PvP items more so the risk isn't so great.
The extraction elements of DMM were the most exciting parts for me, whether it be stacking up resources and making a mad dash to the bank, or finally getting a clean KO and emptying my looting bag. These are the exhilarating moments that couldn't be experienced by players resigned to never engage in PvP. One of my favorite innovations in Ark was the starter kit that was supplied to you if you got wiped. Instead of loading into a match with virtually nothing and scavenging to get built up again, you were given a basic loadout that allowed a fighting chance while you scavenged. This created inordinately high highs where you could take out someone 10 times more geared than you by just playing intelligently. I'm not sure exactly how, but finding a way to adapt this to RuneScape would likely spur some players like me to check out PvP. In the future, other than simply iterating on what worked, I'd like to see DMM embrace the
Guys, would you like to see some type of prestige system in the game where if somebody is winning all of their PvP and they're trying to rank up to get some kind of, like, let's say that there's a cape in the game, and if you prestige to like prestige 8, you have to do it at a disadvantage, maybe, where they get like their damage and stuff reduced. If they're really good at the game, they get like a 10% damage nerf with, or would that not work at all? I'm trying to figure out a way to reduce the skill ceiling and the skill floor, but that would just boost. A lot of people would find a way to just boost that. But if you handicap people that are trying to go for a prestige, maybe, but I don't know. This is why there really isn't a fix for PvP. There isn't a fix. You either get good or you don't play. And I'm trying to fix it, but there isn't one. You either get good or don't play. And there isn't really much you can do about it.
Extraction genre even further. Specifically, if skilling continues to be a major part of the game mode and a way to earn points as a non-PvPer, you could have these corrupted events overtake certain regions. Imagine that instead of a breach, you kind of had a Diablo 4-esque Helltide, a corruptive force overtake Mauritania, Karamja, Asgarnia, whatever. The areas would become far more dangerous as standard mobs would get scaled up, bosses would be roaming about, but the rewards would similarly get far better too. Imagine every chop of a tree would note the produce and reward you with 10 logs instead of 1. Imagine the drop rate of a draconic visage goes from a 1 in 10,000 to a 1 in 100. Everyone flocks to this region trying to find the quietest, smallest, calmest world to farm. Until they too are found by the hunters. They can either continue to scavenge or fight back and potentially reap those rewards. I want to see PvP in less coordinated and expected places. Imagine people farming dragons and one of them forgets an anti-fire potion, allowing an unsuspecting PKer to get KO'd. Things like this create the kind of environmental pressure that Ark excelled at, without the overwhelming clusters of players just spamming down certain bosses in a matter of seconds, as they would in breaches. Instead, this kind of event would encompass a large enough area that players would be able to create those party-based synergies Ark and other extraction games are known for. A great extraction game creates environmental and player-driven influence. The best moments in DMM were that. And that's why DMM, to me, is a proto-extraction game adapted by the world's most flexible MMO. I wonder what genre RuneScape chooses to inhabit next. There has been some negative.
Do you guys like leveling your character and building a specific build or in DMM, or do you think that that part was unnecessary to like quest and gear, quest and level up your character and all that? Would anybody play DMM if they just gave you like, if you could just pick what stats you want your character to have, and then you could even go respec him for a certain amount of gold, like a mil, you could just go respec your character's stats? I'd rather just PvP in a PvP mode. It's important because the tryhards migrate to certain level brackets. Questing should be automatically completed, but you should have the option to complete for XP for rewards. They should make a DMM mode where once you right click people, you are stuck auto attacking like in 2007, where it locks you into it. Oh, that's funny. I don't know if they should bring that back.
Negative discourse surrounding old school RuneScape's content cadence, how so many recent updates have been focused on limited time game modes, and I certainly empathize with that. For as much as I love leagues and surprisingly enjoy DMM, I always prefer seeing the main game grow. But the exercise in creativity that these alternate modes offer should be recognized. If I had to guess, some of the best ideas that eventually found second life in the main game were ideas that were first formed from modes like this. That's not to say every one of the most overpowered items or relics from leagues should exist in the main game, but it is saying that spell damage based melee weapons are kind of cool and could create some level of itemization diversity, something the endgame of OSRS sorely needs in my opinion. I would love to see something like the Dogger exist in the main game. Hell, I'd love to see enchanted items imbued by the elements exist in the main game. Why not? It's not like elemental spells have much value right now anyway. These creative exercises transposing elements of Path of Exile and Arc Raiders into this quaint little British MMO is part of the strange, ever-confounding successes of the IP. These things not only interest new players, but broaden the imagination of existing ones. If there's ever something I advocate for in regard to old school RuneScape in my videos, it's to embrace the blend of old school philosophy with new school understanding, appreciating the long-term grinds, the friction, the occasionally obtuse design of OSRS, while supporting innovation in content delivery. Things like raids, like skilling minigames, like Veil Totems. These would never exist without taking inspiration from other genres and adapting it to our favorite old school platform. I want players to look at the creativity shown in some of the item design in leagues and wish for the main game to have a version of those items. Of course, tuned heavily down, but equally inspiring from a buildcraft standpoint. I want there to be items that synergize with your prayer bonus and daggers that cast spells. These aren't antithetical to old school, they are most comfortable in it. It's not like unique items are alien to old school RPGs or RuneScape. In having safe spaces to translate these ideas and test them, you don't risk harming the game permanently. Iterations like Echo Bosses have spurred entire conversations over potentially including them as alternate versions of current fights. With DMM, the conversation has been more sparse, but that's likely due to PvP being a tangled web of conflicting and confusing ideas. But if I had to point to a single feature from these two adapted genres that old school RuneScape so effortlessly inhabited, one that could be interesting to see considered for the main game, well, it's something you've been seeing all video. They gave us infinite run energy, and my god, did it feel good. Thanks for watching, and before I get crucified, I'm fine with run energy existing in the game, I promise.
Run energy high!
Regardless, I want to thank my channel members for sticking with me and wishing the best to those who are just...
Dude, nothing feels better than infinite run and infinite prayer in these temporary game modes. Just not having to worry about that ever is so good. Maybe one day they'll upgrade 99 agility to never having to worry about run again. And then that'll give people a motivation to do it. Like you just stay capped at 100. But that would make stamina potions irrelevant. So I'm not sure how they could do that. Yeah, good video by Theorywise. He had some good points there. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed listening to his takes on DMM mode and leagues and whatnot. Anything that can kind of get you thinking about the game a little bit and try to improve it. You know, I suck at thinking of good ideas to improve the game, but it's fun to try it every now and then.